Hello and welcome once again to another dev diary for MEIOU Taxes 3.0. And yeah, I've read through this one already, and it's looking good. It's looking very nice. So, GigHouse posted this one, but it is on behalf of wogudwkd, which is Justice Fighter, if I remember correctly. So anyway, let's get into it. I know we've already talked about trade back in the second dev diary. I have a link to that in the description. But there have been recently some major changes in how it works. Without further ado, let's get into it. So trade. In the previous dev diary, we explained how trade in MEIOU Taxes 3.0 is based on a network of trade nodes. Provincial trade with trade nodes, and then trade nodes trade with each other. This high-level abstraction of global trade was a noticeable improvement when compared to the unidirectional trade of vanilla, yet nevertheless it had its own share of issues. The most fundamental issue with the model was transportation cost. I mean, how do we even measure it? One solution might be to measure the average terrain malus and infrastructure bonus. If we do that, however, then trade between Malacca and Panthawaddy, wherever that is hampered by the Burmese mountain range. Measuring trade node size also has its fair share of issues, because representing the Silk Road becomes difficult due to the sheer size of trade nodes that compose it. However, if you don't measure trade node size, then the algorithm will always prefer the path of large nodes, since they cover more distance with a similar transportation cost to smaller nodes. My solution was to scrap all that and build something new. Conceptually, the idea of actors trading with each other based on supply and demand through the gradual changing of trade volume remains intact. What's new is the actors in the system and the links formed between them. In summary, trade nodes no longer serve as an intermediary for intra-provincial trade. Instead, provinces now trade with each other. Let me explain how. And yes, the explanation is definitely needed because it's a bit of a word salad, right? So, suppose you're in some small town in the middle of Kansas. No company in their right mind would run a direct flight from that town to New York. Instead, you fly from that town to a nearby hub, from which you then take a large transit flight. It's far more efficient for small-scale flights to first aggregate to a nearby hub. Every airport, big or small, ran a direct flight to every other airport. That would be a logistical nightmare. Well, it'd be impossible, never mind a logistical nightmare. In the new model, trade centers serve a similar role. Trade centers use communication efficiency's distance script to find provinces within reach, taking province size, terrain, infrastructure, and even sea routes into account. Centers then use these provinces to form trade links, with the results of the distance script used as a transport cost. Open links then facilitate the flow of trade. The special part about these changes is there is nothing special about trade centers. They aren't fixed to certain locations, such as trade nodes. They're just provinces and they can create new links freely. There can be several trade centers in a single node and no centers in another. They can be created and destroyed dynamically, changing over time as the game progresses. Let's show you how it works in practice. And now, this is where you really get to see, well, how it works. It's it takes a little bit of looking at and trying to understand, but it's really good. It's really, really, really good, right? So, Florence has a flourishing textile industry which consumes fiber as its input. However, Florence does not seem to be producing much fiber itself, focusing most of its land and labor into producing food which feeds the city. So yes, Florence in the base game, and I think in also MEIOU Taxes, the previous versions produced, was it cloth or luxury cloth or something along those lines. So now it's creating textiles, and you can see there it's creating 40.263, whereas its crops, so its food, is 94.483. But there's not much production of fiber, in which I mean there's none. Well, no, there isn't none, because livestock is fiber, but it's only producing 3.173. Which is not enough. So it needs to import that. So where does it import it from? Well, you check the next one, not after this one, but we see here first, fiber is imported from other parts of the world. So we have a look down at the third one, fiber, it exports 0.005, but it imports 24.518. Right? So where does that fiber come from? We have a look, and most of the fiber is coming from trade partner 112. If you check where 112 is, oh hello, this is something I haven't seen before. So I can't really move my mouse because the picture will change. But you know how when you're looking at missions in EU4 and it'll highlight the province? It's doing that here. It's highlighting the province. That's something we haven't seen before. Okay, so look at Venice. Look at the province of Venetia. It's got that little pink glow around it. Province 112 is Venice. They've done it. They've actually done it. They've made it so that when you're looking at... I assume this is going to work as well for communication efficiency. So when you're looking at where you're communicating to, it's going to highlight it. Because if that's the case, then oh boy, that is very, very nice indeed. I'm going to have to ask them about that because that's got me a little bit excited. As if I couldn't be even more excited. So it's trading with Venice, and a lot of its fiber is being imported, 11.059 from Venice. So let's have a look at Venice. Venice is not really producing that much fiber. Instead, it's importing fiber from other provinces, which it then resells. So this is looking at Venice now. If we look at fiber, it's exporting 49, but it's importing 59. So where is Venice importing from? And we've got this lovely little map mode. So, looking at the details here, if it's white, it's not importing or exporting. So all of this up here, Venice doesn't give a shit about the specifically fiber. If it's red, it is exporting. So you can see here that Florence, very, very red, it's exporting quite a lot there. If it's green, it is importing quite a lot. So, you know, Friuli, Capitanata, Constantinople, Beograd, etc. All of these green ones, it's importing fiber from there, then reselling it onto Florence at a profit. Cool. So moving down again, this is Friuli, which has a large plain and it's producing a good amount of fiber through its livestock industry. So livestock 12.372, and yeah, it's creating that and exporting it to Venetia. Capitanata as well. Lots of livestock, selling it to Venetia. I assume maybe it's selling it to more than just one province. I assume so. And then Lika Krabavka, something like that. In fact, all three provinces produce a large amount, provide around the same amount of fiber to Venice, since they have the same map mode value range. So they're technically all the same distance away. I'm assuming then that there's no road in Friuli, so it's going slower from Friuli to Venice. Lika Krabavka has a port, but not a very good one. So it's transporting across the water to Venice. And then Capitanata, I'm assuming because there's two sea tiles, or I guess three, it's got a very good port. Either that or it's transporting to here and then to here, something like that. But it's got a better port than Lika Krabavka, I would assume. So, moving down again. Trade detail does indeed show that these provinces are exporting fiber to Venice, which is ID 112. So we have a look here, and yes, it is exporting 2.027 fiber to Venetia. It's also importing and exporting like everything. There's nothing here that is just flat zero. Even fuel, right? There is a fuel export here. It's very small, but it is exporting fuel. It's also exporting some raw materials, 0.002. God, the trade system in MEIOU, Texas, looks so much deeper and more interesting. I love it. Right, and then we'll have a look here. This one is Capitanata, and it's exporting 4.056 to Venice. I wonder, is it also exporting directly to Friuli? Sorry, not Friuli, Florence as well. Could be, it might be. I'm assuming you couldn't trade with more than just one. And then looking at Lika Krabavka, it's also exporting 3.3297 fiber to 112, which is Venice. And then we're having a look at Constantinople, which is, if we look at the fiber, it's exporting 27. Its demand is 26, so it's using some of its own fiber. And then it's also importing 47, which means that Constantinople is importing fiber and then reselling it onto Venice, which is then reselling it onto Florence, which is trade chains. Chains of trade. So nice. Constantinople is also exporting a good number of fiber to Venice, which is also bought from other provinces in its vicinity. This trade chain might even continue all the way on to China. This example shows that how by tracking the source of Florence's fiber, we're able to visualize how provinces use the new model to move goods from one place to the next, forming a dynamic and complex network in the process. And since trade is done between provinces directly, it's easy to include interprovincial relations that might affect trade. Religious differences, while not as important as one may expect, will show their impact on the trade network. And if you want to artificially give your provinces an advantage in trade, it's possible to subsidize trade within the country as well as with other countries. While this is the status quo, we'll try and add more features to this set in the future, as it carries a lot of potential to improve gameplay. What I'm thinking right now is embargoes, right? Because embargoes in EU4 vanilla are quite boring. You just click the embargo button if they're a rival, only if they're a rival. They get a little bit less money, you get a little bit less money, and because they'll obviously embargo you back, and that's it. It's very, very boring. But with this, an embargo could cripple who you're trading. Like, take this one for example: the trade between Venice and Florence, right? If Venice ends up being a rival of Florence and they embargo one another, they're no longer trading, and that's the fuel for Florence's textile economy is Venetian, or through Venice. It's their fiber, right? So if that's going to be blocked, that's going to be a huge hit to the Florentine economy. That could be really, really huge. This could work in very, very interesting ways. Maybe you could also add something like, trade wars as well might be improved drastically by this as well. Force somebody to trade with you and you alone. Oh man, the possibilities are endless. I am in love with this system. I cannot wait to get my hands on it. And using the new map mode to check this as well. Oh yes, very, very nice. So I'm going to leave it there. I hope you've enjoyed this dev diary. I've definitely gotten a lot from it. I am very excited to see how all this plays when I get my hands on it. So I want to thank you all very much for watching. If you have any comments, please do leave them in the comment section below. Any questions, I will pass them on to the devs. And yeah, I love it. I'll see you in the next one. Oh yeah, likes and all that are appreciated too, I guess. So yeah, see you later.